Hi you guys, it's Gabby G in NYC here, and today we're gonna go over vocabulary words. Yeah, I know. Sounds a little crazy, I guess. You know, you're like, what? Why? Am I in elementary school? No. But there are just some words and phrases that you should know, especially in a real estate transaction. Okay, so let's get to it. So, getting into our first word, it is appraisal. So this is an assessment of the property at market value, typically done by an appraiser, a licensed appraiser, because as everyone says, a seller always thinks that their property is worth $1 billion, and a buyer's like, it's worth 2 cents, okay? So an unbiased, licensed opinion from the appraiser is used by our lenders, the banks. They don't want any kind of biases. So that opinion comes from an appraiser, and the bank listens to them and basically determines whether or not your home is worth what it is and what they're actually going to give the buyer based on the appraiser, what the appraiser says. So appraisals are super, super important. So a CTC, or clear to close, is something that we rejoice when this occurs. As agents, we rejoice because it is when an underwriter from a buyer's lender approves their loan documents and the conditions, that whatever the requirements were all met. And now the bank is ready, okay, to set your closing date. So exciting, such an amazing time. Another word, well, phrase that we should keep in mind is closing costs. Yeah. You know what? I like to say that they go hand in hand with down payments, which we'll get to, because closing costs often get forgotten. And I don't really know why. We've got to make sure it's super clear. Down payments and closing costs. As a buyer, you need to consider both of these. So closing costs are typically 2 to 5% of the sales price of a home that you really should be prepared to pay, okay? If you are not, there's something called seller's concession, which we'll get to. But depending on the market, depending how things are, you may not want to go with that option. But anyway, we'll get to that later. Anyway, closing costs. It's something that you just need to keep in mind. 2 to 5% that you should have saved up of the sales price on a home, because it is due at closing table. Next, we're going to address contract riders. Now, a rider is basically an addition to something that's already been established. It kind of like rides along. Yeah, I guess that's what they call it. I don't know. But a contract rider, it's something that's separate from the contract of sale. And it just specifies additional terms. Usually you'll see that with repairs that a seller has agreed to make by closing date for a buyer. It could be like, oh, you know, I'll repair the leaky roof, or I'll replace these outlets, or I'll, you know, fix the wood that's broken on the corner of the floor on the right of the bedroom number 2. Yeah, all of that would be specified in a rider and would be signed at the time that buyer and seller signs the contract. It'll basically be attached to the document. Next, we have one that most people know about, the down payment. Okay, so this is money that a buyer has saved, put aside, and they're prepared to put this amount of money down towards the purchase of their home that they're interested in. So your down payment, as I was saying, it goes hand in hand with your closing costs. The down payment is due sooner than the closing costs are, but keep it in mind. Don't forget about them. You need to be able to do both, okay? So down payment, typically, most commonly, banks are asking 20% down payment. Depending on the loan that you're approved for and all of that, that can change. It can fluctuate whether you're going for a co-op, whether you're going for a condo, whether you have an FHA, whatever the case might be, the percentage changes, but most commonly and preferred is 20% down. So that's your down payment. You've got to save up for that. You got to have some kind of money, something to start this whole process with. So that's your down payment. Next up, inspection. So an inspection happens by an inspector, typically hired by the buyer, to observe and report the conditions of a home. And they basically will just check all around the house, exterior and interior, electrical, plumbing, all of it, the works. And they will put together a report and give it on over to the buyer, whoever purchased this inspection, which is typically the buyer, but a seller can purchase an inspection too, just to find out what's going on with their house. I actually do recommend that to my sellers for selling listings, you know. Just saying, it's kind of nice to know what's going on with your own property prior to a buyer finding out. But yeah, this is usually done when this is usually done when a home is on the market to be sold. And lastly, for today, we're going to talk about seller's concessions. Now, I mentioned it earlier, this is a gift, okay, from a seller. It's a gift from a seller. Or it can be something that is asked for from the buyer, and it really is money to put towards purchasing the home in some fashion, which is typically to cover closing costs. So you can, you know, honestly, it depends on the market, because it's less appealing to a seller if a buyer's asking for a seller's concession, is asking the seller for money to put towards closing in a seller's market. Usually in a seller's market, a seller is going to go with an offer that isn't asking for anything towards their closing costs. If it's a buyer's market, sometimes sellers will just gift this in order to make their home more appealing than the next, because they're just so much inventory and so few buyers. But it's something that's available to buyers. Depending on the market, it's something that's available if you are not able to cover your own closing costs. So it's something to always think about, but you should know your down payment and you should know if you will require a seller's concession, but please work towards covering your own closing costs. That makes your offer so much more appealing. I'm just saying. But you can still purchase a home even using a seller's concession. So I hope those vocabulary words were a little bit helpful for you, and hopefully I was able to break it down so you understood them just a little bit better. If you have any questions or comments, leave it below. Sorry, I'm hiccuping all over the place. What's going on here? Let's do that again. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I will get back to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your shares and your likes. You are amazing. And keep following me for more information on real estate. If you have never watched my videos before, check out the older videos and come back for more. I love you guys for watching. See you later.